Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday, and welcome into a new edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Podcast Network and on Patriots Press Pass. I'm Evan Lazar, joined as always by Alex Barth. And now officially, we can say that the Patriots have not placed the franchise tag on cornerback J.C. Jackson. Jackson headed to the open market next week and not tagged by New England. We are going to get to some of the other tags around the league, what those mean for the Patriots, and obviously the Russell Wilson trade breaking all NFL news here today. And Aaron Rodgers got one upped, right? It felt like that was going to be the news of the day. And then here comes Russell Wilson getting traded to the Denver Broncos. We will also cover that, but we knew this was coming. This was expected for a long time here, a couple weeks, really since the combine last week is when we really got the official word from Ian Rappaport that this was the expectation. But the Patriots elected not to franchise J.C. Jackson and letting him go to the open market. I would categorize it at this point that J.C. Jackson has priced himself out of New England. Now, this could come back, right? They don't know officially that J.C. has a deal out there that is going to price him out of being a New England Patriot. So I wouldn't shock me. Crazier things have happened than the Patriots jumping back into this late when J.C. Jackson officially becomes a free agent next week. But as of right now, no tag, and it looks very, very unlikely that he's going to be back in New England next season, Alex.
Yeah, and I mean, we've kind of known this the last couple of days. Again, I'm overall surprised with the result just because of not even like JC's a great player, but in addition to that, who they have behind him. But let's see, here we go. This is a kind of, in Bill we trust moment. He's going against the curve, and he's hit sometimes in these situations. Sometimes they haven't been kind to him. So we don't know the whole picture here. What's the next move, right? I'm not going to sit here and say definitively, oh, this is brilliant, or oh, this is awful. A lot of this is, what do you do with it, right? What are you going to do with this opportunity? Where does the money go? How do you improve the cornerback position? But, I was operating throughout most of the offseason under the assumption J.C. Jackson would be back. So I'm overall surprised.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that after last year, after uncharacteristically aggressive, I'm glad that I can say that again in some capacity. After uncharacteristically aggressive, it did feel like the Patriots were operating a little bit differently than how they operated during the Tom Brady era. Letting J.C. Jackson walk and replacing him with a player through the draft or through even free agency that's a fraction of the cost, that's a Belichick move in the Brady era. That's how they used to operate during the Tom Brady era in New England, where they let Ty Law go. They let Asante Samuel go. They let Aqib Talib go. They let Malcolm Butler go, right? And the list goes on and on and on. That used to be how they would operate then. I thought after last offseason that this might be a little bit different. And I specifically thought that having a quarterback that you feel good about being your franchise quarterback and a guy like Mac Jones would change the fact that they aren't paying the quarterback $25+ million a year, and they would be willing to move this money around elsewhere, right? And they would be willing to give out those big contracts and have the position players being at the very top of the ledger instead of the quarterback. And this move with J.C. Jackson tells me that the old Bill Belichick, who looks for value, who doesn't want to overpay his own guys, that doesn't want to be stuck with a bad contract, as ironic as it is, given some of the contracts they signed last offseason, that guy's still here. He still exists in some capacity. The Patriots didn't operate like they did last offseason with Jonnu Smith and Nelson Aguilar and some of the other contracts that they gave out that now in hindsight look a little bit questionable. And that's where I find it to be the most interesting, is that because they had all this money last year, they were comfortable with taking a little bit of risk on with some of those free agent additions, but they weren't comfortable taking on a little bit risk for one of their own guys. And I'm not saying that they're going to really regret this necessarily. It's not anything crazy like they're losing the locker room over any of these moves, but I do find it interesting that the old Bill has come back a little bit in these negotiations, and now all of a sudden they are getting fiscally smart in their mind, right? They're chasing value, and they're not going to reset the cornerback market for a guy that's probably in the 5 to 10 tier of cornerbacks in the NFL, but he's not the best cornerback in the NFL. So, in the Patriots' eyes, we're not going to compensate him like he's Jalen Ramsey because he's not Jalen Ramsey, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, no, they do a tier. They put less value in, I don't know what the term would be. I guess would be inflation, right?
Right.
You know, guys who aren't necessarily the best at the position will get the most money because the cap goes up. It's about percentage of the cap, right?
Right.
They're not going to necessarily put the value in that. They're going to say this is what Jalen Ramsey's making. It doesn't matter what salary cap he signed it under. You're not better than him. We're not paying you more than that. That's kind of, I think, what this comes down to.
Right. So now the question is not that we didn't expect this. First thing I want to ask you, do you think that there's any chance, and when I say any chance, obviously there's always a chance of anything happen, but is there an actual decent percentage chance that JC Jackson hits the open market next week, the Patriots survey the field, Jackson comes back to them like we've seen with Devin McCourty, like we've seen with Dante Hightower in the past, and says, I got $18 million per year on the table from the Chargers, from the Raiders, whoever it ends up being, and the Patriots actually go out and match it? Is there a chance that they're letting the market dictate his value instead of bidding against themselves, which is what they would be doing right now, because technically nobody can actually negotiate with JC Jackson. So there is a potential that they don't want to give him $20 million a year because they're not sure anybody else would give him $20 million a year.
Right. I mean, look, is it technically possible? Yes. Like, I think that's their thought process, right? I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to get the bag. I think he's going to get 20.
Right.
Because you look at the teams that need a corner, they have cap space. The Chargers, the Raiders. I mean, and boy, in that AFC West now, and I'm sure we'll get to the Russell Wilson trade in a little bit, but
yes,
you better be able to play in the secondary if you want to win games in the AFC West, right? So those teams have all the more reason now to make JC Jackson their big signing of the offseason, right? So I'm sure that the Patriots will leave that door open. Like, I could totally see them saying that, like, go out there and see what you get and come back to us with it. But I also think that, it's highly likely that he comes back and says, all right, I'm getting $20 million a year from the Chargers. I'm getting $21 a year from the Raiders, whatever it is. Yeah. Patriots just say, well, congratulations. You did it. Best of luck to you. Yeah. Don't forget about us when you're a big shot, all that. So
yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at with that, is that I'm sure that they would, if they could match it, they'd match it. I don't think they'll be able to match it at the end of the day. Dude's about to get paid.
The crazy thing about it is that if you look at, and I get mock drafts are not always accurate and all that kind of stuff, but if you look at some of the positions that some of the contenders in the AFC are targeting, a lot of these people and a lot of people around the league anticipate the Kansas City Chiefs are going to add another receiver to that already ridiculous offense.
Yeah.
Right?
I saw a list. I was shocked. I was writing about the Russell Wilson trade. How about this? I was looking at, top 3 landing spots for DK Metcalf.
Yeah.
Kansas City's number 1 on that list right now.
Yeah, the Chiefs are clearly interested in adding another receiver. I think they feel like too much is on the plate of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce.
Which might be right.
Yeah, they might be right. They don't want to go the route like in 2007 with the Patriots. Remember in 2009, actually 2007 was a different thing. Remember in 2009 when Bill Belichick said, we have Randy Moss over the top, we have Wes Welker underneath, and everybody knows it's all we have, right? That's kind of where the Chiefs are at with their offense now, where if they go out and they add that third guy, they were in on Odell Beckham as well, right? They've been trying to add this third guy. So you look at the Chiefs, they're trying to add another guy. The Buffalo Bills are rumored to add another guy as well. A lot of people think that they're going to be interested in wide receivers in the draft because Stephon Diggs is getting up there in age. Cole Beasley is seeking a trade. Isaiah McKenzie is a free agent. So the Bills, the Chiefs, they're looking for receiver help. The Patriots are sitting here letting their best cornerback walk. Russell Wilson gets traded to the AFC to put another contender in there in Denver. Where do the Patriots go from here? It's a really interesting situation, and I don't want to do the whole coaching staff thing right now, but you put that on top of all of this, that their roster has holes and they don't have an offensive coordinator. It's starting to get a little bit bleak. And I'm not somebody that typically is the sky is falling. So I just wonder where they go from here in the secondary, because specifically at corner. And I know that we do this with wide receiver, and I think that that's somewhat true. But the fact is that the Patriots haven't really identified or drafted very many receivers early in the draft, right? They drafted N'Keal Harry. That's the first time they've ever drafted a first round pick in the Bill Belichick era. They've tried to draft corners early. They've tried to go after corners, specifically, as we all know, in the second round, and they haven't done well with it. They've had way more busts on second round DBs and corners as they've had hits, way more. And at this point, if you draft Kaiir Elam, if you draft Andrew Booth Jr., I like both of those players as prospects, but are they ready to match up against Stephon Diggs? Are they ready to match up against Jalen Waddle? Are they ready to go up in a playoff game against Russell Wilson? And that's where we're sitting at right now. And I look at the landscape of the corners in free agency. Do you want to pay significant money to Tre'Davious Ward? Do you want to pay significant money to Carlton Davis? Do you want to pay significant money to Dante Jackson, who's not a very good corner, right? I mean,
you were very diplomatic about that.
Where are we going with this, Alex? That, like, talk me off the ledge, because I'm not really a ledge person, right? Like, I don't really do this, but talk me off the ledge about the Patriots right now, because I look around this AFC and I start to wonder, unless Bill just does Bill Belichick things all next year, or Mac Jones takes a major leap forward, both things potentially possible, the AFC playoff race right now, and I get it's March and I get it's early, it's getting harder and harder to see the Patriots as a playoff team, right? I mean, it's getting a lot more bleak now that I would say that all these things are happening around the Patriots. JC Jackson's probably not going to be here. Where do they go from here?
Yeah, so I mean, we can go micro and macro with this. Where do you want to start? Micro, macro.
I want to start
big picture, small picture.
Let's go macro. We're in a macro time of the season, so
okay. So first off, I think, and actually, you'll like this. This is more your thing than my thing.
Yeah,
I wonder if they're looking at what's going on around the league and just saying, you know what, I'd rather spend that money on offense than defense.
Yeah,
let's go get it. Let's go get a receiver. Let's really upgrade that third down back. Let's get a guy who, like a Jerick McKinnon, who can really be a threat.
Right.
And let's try to turn this thing into a track meet. Now, I don't know that that's the best direction for them to go.
Yeah.
But that's, because again, I said it before, the whole thing with the JC Jackson situation is it's not just, him letting him go, letting him walk is half the equation.
Right.
That's only half of the story. That's all we have right now. So that's what we're going on. But What do you do with that money? How do you fill that role? If they fill that role with Carlton Davis, and then they go out and they use, the money and the difference to go and sign a wide receiver, to go upgrade their wide receivers, or go get a back or something, or maybe that's how they bring Trent Brown back. You keep that offensive line together, right, with that money. And then they come out. Look, for as much as we talked about the growing pains offensively last year, they were 6th in the league in scoring. And
no, I think that they're close on offense.
Right.
I honestly do think they're close.
They played some bad teams, right? They ran up 50
Everybody
on the Jets.
Plays some bad teams, though.
They ran up 50 on the Jags. Exactly. What did the Bills score against the Jags? Was it 6?
Right.
Was it 3 or 6? Right. And you don't get to 6th in scoring in the National Football League in 2 games. I agree with you. I think they're closer offensively before this move. Like, assuming JC Jackson comes back, they're closer defensively than they were offensively. Maybe they're flipping that. So that, the other thing is, in terms of playoff, I understand it adds another probably double-digit win team to the AFC.
Right.
Patriots don't play the Broncos this year. And the reality is all those AFC West teams are going to beat up on each other. So I don't like big picture or big picture in terms of the 2022 season. I don't feel like this makes the Patriots extremely more or less likely to make the playoffs. If they play Denver, right, in a game that, if they play Denver, right, that's a game that probably would have been a win. Now it's probably a loss. Now I'm a little more concerned. I saw somebody say we're going to see 4 4 10-win teams, 3 12-win teams in the AFC West?
Yeah.
I don't think so. They've got tough schedules on their own, and they're all going to beat up on each other.
Right.
So when you're talking about the wild card, I think it's a wash. I think it's ultimately a wash.
Okay, so I'm with you that I don't think that it's automatic that the AFC West is just going to dominate the AFC and all that kind of stuff. You mentioned something about wide receivers, though, and I think that honestly, that's where a lot of the tea leaves that you hear of and a lot of the things that you read into, that's where I feel like the Patriots in the veteran market, because when you look at the cornerback market, there's one move that I think they might be in on if it becomes available for a little to no cost, and that is flipping a day 3 pick to the Giants for James Bradbury, who is a solid man cover corner, starting corner in the league, a veteran stopgap at that spot, right? Where you put him in there, he's making $13.5 million next year. It's a 1-year, $13.5 million deal. And you use a guy like James Bradbury as a bridge to Kair Elam or as a bridge to Andrew Booth Jr., or wherever it ends up being that you draft in April. But wide receiver, I think, is an interesting one because it's very clear to me from people that you talk to, from everything that you read, that the Patriots would like to upgrade Nelson Agholor in this offense. Not only would they like to upgrade Nelson Agholor, but specifically, we've been talking a lot about slot receivers because that's New England. Julian Edelman, Troy Brown, Wes Welker, Deion Branch. That's the Patriots. I think internally, they feel pretty good about bringing Jacoby Myers and Kendrick Bourne back to be the Z in the slot, right? The 2 and the 3 basically in the offense. And one of those guys playing a lot inside, probably Jacoby with Kendrick Bourne going inside, outside. The spot that I think that they feel they're most lacking is on the outside receiver. And I also think that it's not just a 2022 issue. I think they also look at it and they see we have nobody under contract that can play full-time outside X in 2023 and beyond either, because N'Keal Harry's not getting his 5th-year option with the Patriots, obviously, and Nelson Agholor is on an expiring contract. So they don't have a whole lot of outside receivers that are under contract beyond this year. With all that being said, it could be in the draft, but based off of what's going on defense, the fact they're losing probably at least a couple of linebackers and J.C. Jackson. Ideally, I think that they would like to go defense in the draft, especially early in the draft, which leads us to the one big move, if they do make a big move in the offseason in terms of free agency or the trade market, to be wide receiver. And you mentioned that you think the Patriots are closer. I think they're much closer on offense than they are in defense, because offensively, they're returning 11 starters, maybe 12 if you want to call Jonnu Smith a starter, right? They're returning, even though they're losing potentially Trent Brown or Ted Karras, they have Mike Onwenu. So they're basically
they have 4 starting caliber offensive linemen coming back, is how I phrased it.
Right. So they essentially have their entire starting offense under contract next year. And if you swap a guy like Nelson Agholor out and you put an upgrade into that spot, then the offense is obviously going to improve. And I think they are hopeful that Kendrick Bourne's going to improve in year 2, that Jonnu Smith will hopefully give you more in year 2. Obviously, that Mack is going to be better in year 2. So I look at all these things offensively and I say they're one big piece away from being a very good offense. And I think that that's the move that they ultimately make in free agency. But today with the franchise tag deadline, we saw Devontae Adams tagged, we saw Chris Godwin tagged, and we saw Mike Williams sign an extension with the Los Angeles Chargers. So 3 of the top receivers in free agency are off the board. Amari Cooper is expected to be a free agent once he's cut by the Dallas Cowboys, but he's going to be the number 1 guy. He's going to get $18 million a year. So all those types of things, who in this market do you see? And I know I'm not talking myself into Robbie Anderson, but who in this market do you see as a legitimate, not Robbie Anderson level upgrade to that X receiver spot? Because if there's a big move coming for this team this offseason, I truly feel that that's the spot that it's going to be at.
Well, so you saw me in the background trying to get my column posted. I just wrote about this for 98.5 The Sports Hub, and this is what I was in 98.5thesportshub.com. I was talking about you want to get into the micro of how this can be good news for the Patriots, right? Somebody beat me to it in the comments. Thank you very much for reading. That's going to be a fire sale. That's going to be a fire sale in Seattle. I know everybody wants to talk about DK Metcalf. I'll get to him in a minute. More realistically, Tyler Lockett. Now, Tyler Lockett's a bit smaller than you might want as an X. Well, so is he like a true? I think he could play the X in their system because he has that speed, right?
Okay.
He's fast enough. I think they would like how good of a route runner he is.
Right.
He's only 30 years old, or he'll turn 30 in September. He's not even 30 yet. And Andrew Callahan brought this up on Twitter. So he has 3 more years on his deal, but he would carry a $3 million cap hit next year. If he's acquired after June 1st, he'd actually have less of a cap hit than N'Keal Harry. And then the remaining money on the deal there's no more guaranteed money after 2022. So I almost look at it, and I know he's not quite the same player, but it's, the Calvin Ridley door closed yesterday.
Right.
Is this another door opening? And now, again, he's not the traditional X. He's not. But I think his speed and route running ability they've always valued.
Yes.
Speed is something now they're starting to put more stock in. You're not going to get somebody who checks every box. Those guys just don't become available. That's the reality of life in the NFL. Would they sacrifice the size at that spot for the speed and the route running ability to plug in Tyler Lockett there? I think he'd ultimately be an upgrade over Nelson Agholor. The other thing is you could do a lot of weird formational stuff because you could have him at the X and Bourne at the Z. You could also flip him, right? And have Bourne at the X and Lockett at the Z and get weird with that.
Right.
So is he exactly what you want? No, but I think he'd be an upgrade over Agholor. I think he's somebody who will be available, and I think he's somebody who would fit relatively seamlessly into the system.
So I love the system fit. I think he's a really good fit for his route running ability, his speed. The one route that he loves to run, that he runs in Seattle all the time, is the deep over, right? The deep crossing route. That's his money route. And that typically is an inside route, but that doesn't mean that they can't get creative with it. And every time I say get creative with it, I think, well, they don't have a freaking offensive coordinator. So I don't really know how creative they're really getting with it this year, but they have that ability, I think, to line up both of those guys like a Bourne and a Lockett together and make it work. I do think that they can make that work complementary wise. But from everything that I've heard and been told, the Patriots are consistently chasing the big outside receiver. And I'm not necessarily saying, I don't even know if the Seattle Seahawks would be interested in trading DK Metcalf. Like I don't know where that fits into their rebuild. If they feel like DK is going to be here with the next quarterback or not, or if DK forces his way out of Seattle or not, those are all different things, right? That complicates things, certainly. But
the thing with DK, real quick, he's 25. He's entering the last year of his deal, so you're going to have to give up something quality to get him.
Yes, that's the biggest problem.
You're probably also going to have to pay him. And I'd imagine he's going to want top of the market wide receiver money.
He deserves it, yes.
Right. Yeah, no, like rightfully so. One, I could see Seattle sticking with him because here's the thing. Lockett's 30. Lockett's not making it through the rebuild. By the time the rebuild's done, he's 33. He's cooked. Metcalf on the other side of the rebuild is going to be 27, 28, right in his prime. You're going to ultimately try to get a guy like that for your young quarterback anyway. That's what we're talking about the Patriots doing right now. I think Metcalf would still be incredibly, incredibly expensive, both in terms of what it's going to take to get him and then to pay him. Whereas Lockett already has a deal that's pretty team friendly. He's probably not making it through this rebuild, so Seattle's going to be more willing to part ways with him.
So there's, for every reason, Tyler Lockett makes more sense from a Patriots perspective. I think the biggest one is if DK Metcalf is on the block, the amount of draft capital that teams are going to be willing to give up for DK Metcalf is going to be a lot more than the Patriots are going to be willing to give up for DK Metcalf, right? I mean, Seattle might legitimately get 2 first-round picks for DK Metcalf. There's no way Bill Belichick is paying 2 first-round picks for a wide receiver and then paying that guy. It's just, unless he was Randy Moss, like I'm not seeing it, right?
Well, they're going to do, if Seattle's smart, what they'll do is say, well, we gave up 2 firsts for Jamal Adams, and he's actually not that great. So that's where we're starting with DK Metcalf. Like, that's what they'll say if they're smart.
But from a size the way that DK Metcalf profiles, I think is still the guy, the golden goose for the Patriots. I still think that that's the guy that they want to get. They want to get a big X receiver on the outside that can win outside the numbers, that can win over the top of the defense. And I don't think that that's Tyler Lockett. I think that their dream scenario is to acquire somebody like DK Metcalf. Now, the other thing that somebody said in the chat just now was, well, aren't there better options in the draft? And undoubtedly, there's great options in the draft. I mean, we've talked about the draft receivers ad nauseum here on the show. The concern that we always have with the Patriots is drafting wide receivers is, can they develop that guy? Can they use him properly? Can they get him to be successful? And I actually think the Patriots, based off of their free agent moves last offseason, based off the fact that they've kicked the tires already on some of these X wideouts this year, feel kind of the same way. Like, yeah, we could draft a Chris Olave, we could draft a Treylon Burks, we could draft a Drake London, but are those guys actually going to turn out to be good in our system? Are we going to be able to develop them? Are we going to be able to bring them along? Are we going to be able to use them right away in 2022 and get the same level of production as if we bring in a veteran option? I honestly think that they're getting to the point, and on top of all of that, then you draft Chris Olave with 21. Well, now where are you taking your corner? And where are you taking your linebacker? And where are you filling the holes on defense? So I really think that they would like to go the veteran route if they can to upgrade at wide receiver, just because they feel more comfortable scouting and evaluating pro prospect to pro offense versus college to pros based off of their track record.
But again, like that guy you're describing, right? If they want the big, fast, physical, true, dominant X, like that guy's not available. Teams that have that guy are keeping that guy, right? With Calvin Ridley, that was a fluke thing where he asked out. There's no other receivers asking out right now. So if that's the guy they want, then they have to. It's not going to happen this year, unless again they go through the draft, which I think you make a good case for not doing that through the draft this year. So now it's, well, where are you settling? Are you going to settle on the size? Lockett. Are you going to settle on the route running ability? Robbie Anderson, right? Like that's just, you're not going to get the guy you want. You're not going to get the guy you want. That's just the way it works. So let me put it to you this way. Assuming the same price. Who would you rather have? Tyler Lockett, Robbie Anderson, or keep Nelson Aguilar?
I would probably lean towards Lockett in that situation pretty heavily. But ultimately, again, I just don't think that Lockett has enough size for what they want. I just think that they want somebody that can win with size outside the numbers or just be a pure X, right? Like a guy like Amari Cooper,
then it's Robbie.
Be too expensive, but
so then it's Robbie Anderson.
So the only other name that I want to throw out, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more and dive deeper into the free agency class on Thursday, but the only name I would also throw out there is Allen Robinson, who they were prepared last year to make an offer to Allen Robinson. The Bears franchise tagged him. They did a lot of homework on Allen Robinson. They looked into Allen Robinson free agency last year. They were prepared to go to market with him. The Bears end up franchise tagging him, and it ends up now coming to fruition. When you look at over the cap, they project that Allen Robinson's going to get a 3-year, $15 million per year deal. And although that sounds on the surface like it's too much money for the Patriots, if they spread the cap hits out, they backload the contract, I actually think that they could get a 3-year, $45 million deal under the cap for Allen Robinson. So if they want to go that route, they want some more size, they want some of those type of things, I think Allen Robinson's probably the best case scenario out of that group. Certainly better than Robbie Anderson, right? So that's where I'm at with it. I know that you're not super high on Allen Robinson. You can tell us why. I agree that the age and the injury history is a concern. I think that those are the two things that are probably the biggest concerns of all those things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just worried about the drop in production. He's going to be 20. I think he'll be 29 at the start of the season. He'll turn 29 in camp. And look, I get Chicago's offense was an absolute mess last year. Like I totally understand that. But man, 38 catches for 400 yards and a touchdown in 11 games. it feels like a red flag to me. It's been a few years. Actually, no, never mind. Take that back. He had 1,200 yards last year. I don't know why I thought there were 2 of those years in there. I just worry about the lack of last year. What was it? And that's, I'm not watching the Chicago Bears closely on a week-to-week basis. They are, right? So maybe they see what the issue was. Somebody in the chat says it was Fields. Like, maybe that's it. I think that's part of it. Again, but even playing with a bad quarterback, like I look at, Zach Wilson wasn't great last year either.
To be fair, he's played with bad quarterbacks his whole career and has always produced.
Absolutely. Right? But so, for instance, I just got to pull the numbers up here. I got to find them real quick. I look at what Corey Davis did last year. Corey Davis was not playing with a good quarterback last year. Corey Davis was not playing in a good offense last year. And he had, thanks NFL.com for being super fast and helping me make my point, he basically matched Allen Robinson's numbers playing 2 fewer games.
Right.
So even the standard of play, like Allen Robinson, open market should be a better receiver than Corey Davis. But both playing with bad quarterbacks, Davis put up at even for what the situation was, right? The numbers still feel lower than they should be. And I'm wondering why. I'm not necessarily saying definitely don't go after him. I'm saying, and if they were, if they're going to pursue him, I'll look more into it. But the numbers worry me even for what the situation was.
Yeah, I think the thing with Allen Robinson that you like, though, is he's definitely one of those guys that is a great route runner, especially at the line of scrimmage. Great release package, great ability to create separation early in the route. Pretty good contested catch receiver, too. Like, if he doesn't create separation down the field, he's got a catch radius. He's got that ability to win contested catches, and he can play inside and outside. So he's somebody that I think checks a lot of their boxes. The last name that I would look at this wide receiver market, again, in the news today, Devontae Adams, Chris Godwin, Mike Williams off the board for the Patriots, either franchise tagged or extended by the Los Angeles Chargers. In Williams' case, we both love this guy. I know he's got some mixed reviews from Patriots fans, but the idea of bringing Brandon Cooks back for a year makes a lot of sense, honestly, because I think Brandon Cooks is a better player than Nelson Aguilar is. His contract is comparable. It's 1 more year, base salary of $12.5 million. So it's a $12.5 million cap hit for the team. Acquiring him can be worth up to $13 million, basically the same exact money as Nelson Aguilar.
I think he's younger than Aguilar too, right? He's 28.
He is 29 years old right now.
Who, Aguilar?
Brandon Cooks.
Oh, Cooks is 6 months younger.
Yeah, so this has been thrown out a lot. I've never been fully on board with it, just because I didn't think the Patriots were fully on board with the reunion necessarily. But now I feel like it does have a little bit more traction because Brandon Cooks in Houston makes 0 sense. They're not going to have Deshaun Watson back. If he does come back to play football, he's not playing for the Texans. It just doesn't make any sense to have that type of player at 29 years old in a rebuilding team. They'd much rather, as they should, give those reps to a younger receiver that is potentially a part of their future. So bringing Brandon Cooks back for a year, I think would make a whole lot of sense for the Patriots as well. He's an upgrade over Nelson Aguilar. Maybe you then draft somebody in that X receiver mold, maybe not with your top pick, but maybe a 3rd or 4th rounder on some sort of X receiver, prospect that could develop into a starter down the road. And you bridge that gap with Brandon Cooks for the time being. I just like Brandon Cooks, the idea of it, because I just think he's better than Nelson Aguilar, though. That's ultimately what I think this is. And you don't have to worry about any of the projections and stuff like that because you know exactly how he fits.
Where's the Brandon Cooks stuff coming from, though? I feel like the only time I ever see his name is in our chat. I'm all for bringing him back, but I haven't really seen.
There's nothing real. There's no real traction to this other than the fact that it just doesn't make sense for him to stay in Houston. It doesn't make sense for the Texans, and it doesn't make sense for Brandon Cooks. So if he does become
I kind of figured. Yeah, I kind of figured. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing anything because again, I'm all for I'm a huge Brandon Cooks guy going back to New Orleans. I said at the time, and by the way, I think I was vindicated in this take. When the Saints traded Brandon Cooks to the Patriots, they did so because him and Michael Thomas weren't happy playing with each other. They basically didn't think there were enough catches to go around. Yeah. I said at the time they traded the wrong receiver. I think I might have been right in that. I know Michael Thomas had that one great season, but he hasn't played in 2 years. Brandon Cooks, steady production, 1,000-yard guy. So I'll take Brandon Cooks back in a second.
Yeah, Brandon Cooks is not yielding a second round pick. Like you can get Brandon Cooks out of Houston for a day 3 pick. I don't think that he's somebody that's going to get a
Then what's
huge
the wait?
return. I don't know. That's a good question. If that trade's out there, I think that one's also a possibility. So I think the two things that just kind of summarize what we're talking about here. Number one is getting an outside receiver, I think, is a priority for the team. Number two is pointing the draft in a defense direction, I think would be the ideal scenario. And this is me talking. I just personally think that would be the ideal scenario for the Patriots because they have too many holes on that side of the football. And if they then also have to throw a receiver into that mix somehow, they just don't have the capital. They just don't have the picks to be able to fill all these holes. If they can go all defense in the draft a corner, draft a linebacker, maybe draft another edge rusher, pass rusher, then they'll have that ability potentially to put this defense back together. If they have to then also throw in there that they have to draft a receiver on top of all of that, and it has to be early so that it's somebody that can actually make a difference, I just think that it gets really complicated at that point.
Yeah, I'd agree. They veterans the way to go there.
Yeah. So let's go back to Russell Wilson here for a second before we wrap this. I think the interesting we talked about potentially buying guys from Seattle. I think you touched on it briefly, Alex. I know you wrote about it. How good do you think that this really makes Denver? And is this something that the Patriots, I'm not going to say need to be worried about, but is this another team that the Patriots are going to have to leapfrog here?
Well, so here's how I look at it, right? And obviously Tom Brady's better than Russell Wilson, but Tom Brady stepped into a 7-win Bucs team 2 years ago. They won 11 games and won the Super Bowl.
Right.
Denver won 7 games last year. They got great receivers, right? Great receivers. Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy. Love that group. I'm a little surprised they gave up Fant. If I were them, I would have given up the extra pick because I think Fant and Wilson would have worked really well together. And then defensively, they were the third best defense in football last year in terms of points allowed. You look at that secondary, right? Some of the ballers they've got in that secondary. When we saw Denver here 2 years ago, and I know they ultimately won the game, but we were talking then about Denver being a quarterback away. I may have hit it because I'm a big Drew Lock guy, but I think we all knew at that point.
You're also a big Jerry Jeudy guy, though, to be fair.
Oh, I'm so pumped for Jerry Jeudy now. 1,000-yard season incoming, all that. This team for 2 years has felt like they're a quarterback away. Now, again, I think the biggest detraction is the division they have to play in. Yeah. And they have to play the Chiefs twice and the Chargers twice and the Raiders twice, and that's not going to help. But no, this is a legitimate Super Bowl contender now. I would say the Broncos do have a Super Bowl caliber roster. And you look at the Super Bowl winners the last 2 years. Brady in year 1 with Tampa, Matthew Stafford in year 1 with the Rams.
Yeah.
This might be the new blueprint. This might be the new blueprint. And yeah, there's a lot of reasons to think that the Broncos can contend for Super Bowl.
It is interesting the blueprint that you mentioned, because it's not just the blueprint for the teams. I think it's also potentially the blueprint for the quarterbacks, right? Is that you look around, and I don't know if necessarily Denver in the AFC West with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert in that division. I'm not really sure what the big attraction was there for not only Russell Wilson, but apparently Aaron Rodgers also had Denver as his number 2 to Green Bay, right? So people want to go to Denver. I'm not 100% sure what it is. I think they have a good roster. I think they have a good defensive roster. Their weapons are good, not great. Maybe a good quarterback like Russell Wilson will make them look even better. We'll see. I'm not ready to crown Denver just yet. I'm not sold on their roster talent being quite as good as maybe you are or other people are. I'm also not quite sold on the coaching situation either. Like, do we know Nathaniel Hackett's a good coach? Are we sure that Nathaniel Hackett's a good coach? Because Sean McVay is a good coach. Tom Brady won in spite of Bruce Arians, right?
Right.
Andy Reid's a good coach and won with Patrick Mahomes before that. And I'm just interested to see what Nathaniel Hackett now does with Russell Wilson, because I think one of the biggest things with Russell Wilson in Seattle, what made it so difficult for him, is he didn't always have the best coordinator running the show. Darrell Bevel was okay. Schottenheimer was worse. They didn't really ever figure out too high. Like, they've had a lot of issues coaching wise in Seattle with the offense. And on top of that, Pete Carroll wants to run the football and was insistent on running the football, even though he had one of the best quarterbacks in the league and two of the best receivers in the league to throw to. So they haven't been coached well on that side of the ball. And I think one of the biggest things that you can look at about when a team's not coached well on offense is how their offensive line plays. Because if you have a good coaching staff and you have a good O-line coach and a good OC, then your offensive line is good. It just is. That's how it works, right? You go down the line of all the teams that have good offensive staffs. Their O-line plays well. Their offense plays well. So are we sure that Nathaniel Hackett can actually get Russell Wilson to where he needs to be? Because Seattle certainly did not.
Yeah, again, I go back to the Bucs won in spite of Bruce Arians.
Yeah, but they won with Tom Brady in spite of Bruce Arians. Russell Wilson's not Tom Brady.
Yeah, I don't think Nathaniel Hackett's going to be as bad as Bruce Arians was. They're both kind of regressing toward, like, they're both kind of more towards the middle, if that makes sense. And look, Russell Wilson, look at what he could have done. Pete Carroll cost him at least one ring, right? He's kind of played with bad coaching his whole life, so he knows how to do it.
It's fair. I mean, their coaching on offense has been terrible, I think, for a long time now. I honestly think they put up points and they put up offense because they had Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett. And how can you not, right? It's impossible not to when you have those three guys working together. But their coaching has not been very good. How about Josh McDaniels, Alex? How do you think he feels this morning or this afternoon about the situation that he just walked into? He thought he was going to a pretty good quarterback in Derek Carr. Now he's got the worst quarterback in his division.
Yeah, I think is he getting on the phone with Tom Brady? Seeing how real that retirement really is.
Vegas is fun.
Vegas is, yeah. I've actually never been, but I hear it's very fun.
I know. You got to get you there.
I know. I got to go. Super Bowl's there in what, 2 years?
Yes. The Patriots play there this year.
That's right. Yeah, I wonder if he regrets not taking Gerard Mayo with him.
Yeah.
I forget who he has as the DC. I can't remember.
No, yeah, he got a good DC. Pried him out of the Giants. I'll look it up. He's got Patriots background as well.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're Patrick Graham, that's right. Yeah, Patrick Graham, who's a Patriot roots, goes back to New England as an assistant and then was with the Giants. Right. And, wanted to be retained by the Giants, actually. But they were able to steal him out there in Vegas. They're pretty good apparently at poaching coaches out there. I don't know what they say or what they do. I guess it's Vegas, right? But
right.
Josh McDaniels, whether it was Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, somebody was going in that division with Denver. Somebody was taking that Broncos spot as the quarterback there. So now he's got the worst quarterback. He might have the worst roster overall out there. He thought he was going to this stable situation and this, couldn't get pass it up type of opportunity is what he said, right?
Well, how different is it? He was already going to have to go through Mahomes and the Chiefs. If he didn't think he could do that, I still think the Chiefs are the best team in that division, right?
Yeah.
So I still think that division goes through Kansas City. If that's the case, if you think you can beat the Chiefs, you should believe you can beat this Broncos team. I think they're really good. I think they're damn good. I still think the Chiefs are the best team, though. Let me think off the top of my head here. Like, I put the Broncos in that top tier in the AFC, right? They're definitely in that top tier with the Chiefs. Broncos might be two. Broncos might be two in the AFC.
You think the Broncos are better than the Chargers?
It's that coach, man. Brandon Staley. He's
going
to
coach.
He's going to blow it for him when it matters.
You hate Brandon Staley.
It doesn't help. That one of the chokiest franchises in NFL history has maybe the chokiest coach in the league. Like, that's just bad karma right there. That's why I think the Chargers are tremendously talented.
Yeah.
We'll see what they do. They got Mike Williams back, actually. They got Mike Williams back.
They need defense. They got their offense is loaded. They can't stop the run to save their lives. They need defense. They really don't have much of a pass rush outside of Joey Bosa either.
Jordan Davis at 17?
Jordan Davis's floor, I think, is 17 to the Chargers. Yeah. I don't think he gets past 17.
Item 16 in my mock. Put him next to Fletcher Cox in Philly.
Yeah.
How about that? But yeah, I can't believe I can't. They're the Chargers. I can't believe it. They're a very good football team. They have a ton of talent. The Chargers are the Chargers. I can't believe in them. It's been that way since like the early days of Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
So
it's been that way since Dan Fouts. Like
really,
yeah, it's been that way their entire history as a franchise. All right. So the meat of the show today, JC Jackson found out at the 4:00 hour, not franchise tagged by the Patriots, set to be a free agent next week. Wrap it up there, Alex. Odds JC Jackson comes back. Are you at 0 yet? Or are you at, put it on a percentage scale for me?
Oh, I mean, like you said, anything can happen, but we're kind of in anything can happen territory. Let's put it this way. We all thought last year it was wild that David Andrews came back. Do you remember that? He was talking to the Ravens and the Dolphins, and then like they even signed his replacement in Ted Karras. And then I think it was Thursday, he ends up coming back to New England. We were all floored. That's the sun rising compared to JC Jackson coming back in terms of regularity. You can't rule anything out. It's the NFL. Can't rule anything out. But something monumental. There's a monumental change in the nature of the league if JC Jackson somehow ends up back in New England.
Yeah, Ben Volin on Twitter just now threw out the Miami Dolphins, who actually have the most cap space in the league, I believe, or second most cap space in the league. They got a ton of cap space.
Yeah, somehow. But they still have Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, right? Or is one of those guys a free agent?
I'm pretty. Yeah, no, they still have both of those guys. Yeah. So he said that there's some whispers that Miami is going to. They have the second most cap space according to Over the Cap. The Chargers.
Yeah, I think the Chargers have the most, right?
The Chargers are number 1 at 56 million currently, and the Dolphins are number 2 at 52 million. Then the Jets, then the Colts, then the Jaguars, then the Seahawks. So the Dolphins, you know that they like to swing big in free agency, right? Like they've done this in the past. They always do. Whenever they have money to spend down there in Miami, Stephen Ross spends the money. He also spends the money to bribe coaches, but
that's true. Yeah.
Conversation for another day.
I feel like if anything, they got who's top offensive line free agent? I can't even remember off the top of my head.
Offensive line free agents are always iffy because most of the guys, if you're a good offensive lineman, you don't usually hit free agency.
That's true. Right? I do wonder because they also got to figure out what they're doing offensively. Like they're fine defensively. Would they go after DK Metcalf? Like that's more the move I see them making. Since we're talking about JC Jackson real quick here, Todd McShay just now on Twitter.
Yeah.
If your team needs a cornerback and can't get one in round 1, this class has plenty of stars that will be available on day 2. Tariq Woolen is the most talented of the bunch.
There you go. That's your guy.
Time to go all in on Tariq Woolen. I think that's kind of where I'm at.
So I would love the idea, and we talked about this the other day, that Zion McCollum is now like the hipster Tariq Woolen. I think Tariq Woolen is too popular now. He
got too mainstream. I'm not happy about it.
He's mainstream now, right? So he's the hipster Tariq Woolen is Zion McCollum, and we know the Patriots they're one of those teams that I'd much rather draft Zion McCollum in the 6th round than Tariq Woolen in the 3rd, right? That's the way that they're going to look at it. But Tariq Woolen, the idea of Tariq Woolen or potentially double dipping at corner, going early corner of a guy that's maybe a little bit more polished, a little bit more pro ready, a guy like Kaiir Elam, for example, right? And then grabbing an athlete later on in the draft and hedging your bets. I did that in my last mock draft with Elam and McCollum. I love that idea. I think that that's the way to go when you have a need. And I would say similarly at linebacker too, for the Patriots. When you have a need and you need to fill it, the draft is, you got at best like a 20% chance of hitting on the pick, right? Like the draft is an absolute crapshoot. I would much rather hedge my bets if I'm the Patriots. Best case scenario, you hit on both guys, right? And you got 2 starting corners out of it. But if it's Tariq Woolen and a corner early, that's a little bit more of a technician, or it's double dipping at linebacker to fill that void, whatever it ends up being, I think all those things should be on the table for the Patriots.
Yeah, I'd agree.
All right. Wrapping it up here. I do want to bring up one comment. The biggest news of the day, not Aaron Rodgers, Alex, not Russell Wilson getting traded. I got to find it. The biggest news of the day, is I am now verified on Twitter, and I'm gonna be excited about this for a second. Woke up this morning. I didn't do anything differently. Didn't even think twice about it. Woke up this morning and they approved me for verification. And I got to admit, now I feel as important as Alex Barth. Now I feel like I have made it. We are on equal playing fields, and you can no longer tell me that you are going to quit the show because you're verified and I'm not. So there you go.
No, I punched down on you quite a bit for that, so that's fair. I'll just say it took you long enough to get here. I think I got mine in June. It was May or June. Congratulations, though.
It did take a while.
You got to make sure that whatever you're tweeting is correct.
That's what I'm saying. I feel a
with
little
verification, with great verification comes great responsibility.
I feel a little bit more pressure now to be a big J, right?
Yeah, that'll go away.
Yeah, and not tweet out anything dumb or silly. I also feel a little bit more pressure now not to clap back so much at the trolls, right? Because you got to be above that as a blue check.
Here's what you got to you can't get got. That's the big one. You can't get got, especially like this week with free agency. You got to be careful.
Got to be careful. Yes.
Don't get got. Yeah.
I'm only going to tweet things that are half truths, right? Where I can back out of it and say, well, I said that this might not actually happen at the end.
No. I meant like when like somebody tweets from like an account that's like Adam Schefter, but like the A is the @ symbol, right?
Yeah.
You know, like you got to be careful for that. Like you're only sharing verified information, right? That's what you got to be. But
because people trust me now. They trust me a little bit more than before. Thank you very much.
Now the race is on to get verified on Instagram.
I don't even use Instagram. Atlas has an Instagram though. Smart. So you can go, maybe we can get Atlas verified on Instagram. I don't use Instagram. I'm not a big Instagrammer. It's not for me. I'm not a picture guy. Like I don't take pictures a lot. So it's just not my forum. I'm a takes guy. That's why I stick to Twitter. Alex and I are going to be back on Thursday. Thank you very much for the congratulations, by the way. I appreciate it, everybody. Alex and I are going to be back on the show on Thursday. Full free agency preview. We'll talk about external targets for the Patriots. We'll talk internal, where things stand. Trent Brown, Devin McCourty, Dante Hightower, who is going to play next year. We'll talk all about those types of things on Thursday. Big free agency preview show. And then on Monday, the legal tampering period, which I still don't fully understand why it exists. But the legal tampering period opens on Monday. Technically, the league year begins on Wednesday, but here we go. I mean, today was the big checkmark day with the free agency tag, the franchise tags, and obviously we didn't really see this Russell Wilson news coming, but Russell Wilson getting traded. But Monday is the day, and Thursday is our preview show. So we're really excited to do that, and we'll talk about all the free agents. We'll probably take some questions or some names. You guys can throw them at us, and we'll say yes or no. I'll do rapid fire if you want to do that as well on Thursday. So come back Thursday, same time, same place for free agency preview extravaganza. And then next week, Alex and I will react to all Patriots-related free agency news here on the pod. And we'll do breaking news stuff on Patriots Press Pass when moves do start coming out. And I'm excited. This is an excited time of year. I'm a little bit tempering my expectations, I would say, about the Patriots being super active in free agency next week. But regardless, there's always a ton of news and there's always a ton of fun outs.
I'm just pumped. Like, we getting the comp picks tomorrow?
We should be getting the comp picks. Last year, we got them on the 10th. Of March,
which was a Wednesday. We looked this up yesterday.
Yeah. So it should be tomorrow or the teams need to know their draft capital before they can go into free agency, right? I mean, that's obvious.
Right. So here's the thing. If we get the comp picks tomorrow, mock draft?
We could do a mock draft.
That's all I want to do. That was so much fun last year. I just want to do mock draft.
Oh, we're going to do plenty of them. I think free agency mock drafts are tough. I do them. We all do them. But I think they are tough because you just don't look, if they sign Allen Robinson next week, then we don't need to mock Chris Olave to the Patriots in the first round, right? I mean,
he's not getting to the Patriots, but okay.
You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Pre-free agency mock drafts are tough.
I'm in the mindset. Like I was watching college baseball last night, and there's this guy on Utah, Matthew Sox, dominant starting pitcher. And I'm like, man, the Red Sox should draft this guy. Like that's just where my brain is at right now. I need to do it. I need my fix.
Alex is easily one of the most locked in baseball draft nerds that I did not know
Oh, it's
that
the
there
tip
was
of the iceberg.
I did not know there was so much to know about the MLB draft until I met Alex and he started to break down rule fives and
It's the worst draft. It's
oh my god.
very stupid. It's the worst draft. It's very stupid. It's 40 rounds. You can't trade picks. It's nonsense.
Just
But
really quickly, and
it's a
then
draft.
I don't want to get off on a tangent about the
Oh,
baseball
no,
draft.
here's the thing. We normally go at least an hour. We're at 55
Right.
minutes.
Yeah.
I actually, should we throw a quick Boston sports minute in here?
Yes, we
Because
can do
there's
that.
quite a bit going
Baseball,
on.
why is it 40 rounds? Like what's the logic there? And does it actually
back in my day in 1908, like because
But
it's been that way forever in baseball.
but does it
change
actually make sense? Like, is there actually a guy that you can point to that was drafted in the 40th round and turned out to be a Hall of Famer or even like an all-star?
Well, see, here's the thing. The baseball draft is the biggest crapshoot. Like guys all over the draft, because you take a kid in the 40th round who's 18, you don't really know what he's going to be.
Right.
The other reason it's 40 rounds is because teams sign like half their draft picks, if that. Did Pujols go in the 40th? He went. I don't know when he went, but
Late.
yeah, teams only sign like half their draft picks. Teams draft guys knowing full well they're not going to sign them. Yes. So it's, again, the whole thing's a mess. It should be. I get why there's more rounds. You need to fill the minor leagues. It should be 10 rounds. Let teams trade picks, and then if you want to do a minor league draft on your own time, rounds 20, rounds 11 through 40 where you can't trade picks and it's just minor leaguers, do that. I don't care. Should be 10 rounds. Let teams trade picks. They're going to add a lottery, which I hate draft lotteries, but fine. Do a normal draft like a normal league and people get into it. College baseball is a great product. You can help grow the game, but no, baseball has to keep things the way they were. Everybody's like, well, baseball, it's been this way since 1920. All right, we didn't have like polio vaccines back then. Sometimes things change for the better. That's baseball.
Baseball is dead. Boston sports.
Yeah, while we're on this.
Okay, really quickly, I will apologize. I will also say that if you want great Celtics coverage, the guys over on the Celtics YouTube channel do a fantastic job. They really do a great job. Bobby Manning and the team over there, they cover the team better than anybody else. So make sure to go and follow them, the Celtics guys on Celtics CLNS. But really quickly, I do apologize. I do own up to my mistakes on this podcast. I was wrong early going about this Celtics team this year. Ime Udoka has proven me wrong. And I think most importantly, out of all of this, Alex, I am willing to admit that Marcus Smart has proved me wrong over the last month or so. But I will say that I think Marcus Smart has changed the way that he plays, right? I do think that some of this was not, we weren't completely wrong about saying that Marcus Smart shot too many 3-pointers and did too much, but now he's playing his role. And everybody seems to be playing their roles. That's a credit to Ime Udoka. Jason Tatum is absolutely a superstar. Nick Wright can kiss my keister. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I think bringing up Ime, I think that's a big part of it. I think early in the year, he still looked like he was figuring things out. And that's not unexpected. He's a first-time head coach. Of course, there's going to be some of that. I think he's really comfortable now. I think he's comfortable with this team. He's learned this team. I think they're comfortable with him. I think they figured out what rotations they like. I think they figured out, different, how they want to run things on the floor. They've really ramped up defensively. So obviously, Tatum, Brown, they're playing great. Credit to them. But a huge shout out to Ime Udoka because he was, people were starting to talk about him as a potential one-and-done coach. And he really, I think he's a big reason they flipped the script. He was excellent. It is a Patriot show. We do this sometimes at the end. We do 5 minutes of Boston sports.
Humor us. Jeez Louise.
Last one. Bruins need to stop allowing goals in the final 30 seconds of games.
Oh, yeah, that would be
killing me.
Yeah.
It's 2 in a row they've done that.
Okay, well, the one a couple nights ago, there was a clock malfunction or something, and that one was a little bit questionable. But I think the good thing about the Bruins is that clearly when Swayman is in the net, they are a good team, right? When that guy's in the net, they're a tough out. They're a tough team to beat, and he's going to be the one that they're going to ride in the playoffs anyway.
Yeah.
So
it's just with the rookie goal, it's kind of like we talked about. Fine, you want us to bring it back to the Patriots. It's kind of like with Mac Jones last year. When you get late in the year, you have a rookie, you have a guy who hasn't played this
Well,
deep
I think
into a
that's why
season.
they're letting Olmark still go every other pretty much with Swayman, right?
Right, to keep him fresh. But it's
Yeah.
there's a mental element to it too. Look, I think like Swayman's the real deal. I think he can play, and I think they're a good team. I just worry about. We just did this with Mac Jones. I'm going to say
Yeah.
it. I hate the term. I'm going to say it. I worry about the rookie wall with Jeremy
Yeah.
Swayman. So he just won Player of the Month. He's been excellent, but
At the
yeah,
same time,
I worry about him hitting the
you know
wall.
that sport, if a goalie gets hot, a goalie gets
That's
hot,
true. That is
right?
true.
And they can
Yeah.
ride a hot goalie like all the way to the Stanley Cup. Like that's how that works. What was I hate to bring it up, but was Bennington, was he a rookie, right? With the Blues?
I think he was. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's not unprecedented in that sport for a young
He
goalie to do
sucks
it.
now. He's like awful. He's been
Yeah.
awful since then. So
Yeah.
it's probably it's a fair point. It is possible. Just as long as they stop allowing goals in the final 30 seconds. If I get one more notification on my phone, Bruins tie game, 20 seconds to go. Like the hell's going on here?
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Celtics banner 18. Absolutely. I'm really pumped up. I'm going on Sunday for KG's retirement with my dad. We're going to the game. Not only is it KG's retirement, Luka Doncic also coming to Boston, the Mavs during the actual game itself is going to be awesome. There's going to be a bunch of Celtics people, Pierce, KG, all those guys are going to be there to watch the game and to honor KG. I've never been. I went to, we were actually at the Bruins game when Willie O'Ree's number got retired for the Bruins a few months ago, but I've never been to a KG level retirement ceremony, right? So this is going to be a whole lot of fun. I've never seen anything like that. So I'm excited for it. And yes, this is a football show. We talked about football for the first 56 minutes of the show. We're going to talk about football on Thursday with free agency and hopefully get the full draft order as well. But thanks so much for humoring us with the Boston sports couple of minutes there. And Alex and I will be back on Thursday to talk about football. We promise. We can leave the Alex talks about everything, but I'll leave the Celtics and the Bruins talk to Celtics and the other Evan Marinovsky and Bobby Manning and the crew. But until Thursday, signing off for Alex Barth, I'm Evan Lazar. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you Thursday.